In this video, I'm going to discuss some key things that you should know before you make the investment and dive into the ecosystem of the new Mango Power E power station. In fact, calling this thing a power station doesn't really do it justice. So I'm going to go with microgrid. What's up YouTube, Jason here with Byte My Bits, and in today's video I want to talk about this behemoth of a microgrid power station brought to you by Mango Power. Now this is actually the first battery that I've checked out from Mango Power. It was sent to me for free, however I was not paid for this video, so everything you're about to hear are my own opinions and nothing more. To keep things flowing and make things easy, Editing Jason will include chapters in the timeline bar down below that should include the following: intro and specs, features, charging, outputs, power and efficiency, display, mobile app, cons, pros, I'd like to switch it up a little bit, the cost of the unit, and then my overall conclusion. So let's jump right into the introduction and specs. This is the Mango Power E. It's a brand new microgrid power station that weighs a whopping 100.1 pounds. It has an optional add-on battery that weighs in at 73 pounds. It has a total overall battery capacity of 3.53 kilowatt hours, and the inverter can handle up to 3,000 watts output. At its core, the Mango Power E is built with CATL, or moving forward, I'm just going to call CATL, lithium iron phosphate, or LFP, battery cells. These are grade A EV quality cells, which is a huge thing considering there are a lot of power stations out there that prefer to use grade B cells. On the side of the device, it has 6 different charging methods, kinda. I'm gonna touch base on charging here in a little bit, but it's 6 technically. And on the front, it has a total of 16 different outputs that you can use to power all sorts of devices, ranging from DC low voltage all the way up to 3,000 watts AC. And not only does it do 3,000 watts, but it also has a true 120 amp inverter, which was very surprising because there are a lot of these power stations, and I'm sorry, I know you identify as a microgrid system, and I apologize. A lot of the smaller power stations, solar stations, whatever nickname they're going by, usually drop the voltage down to 110 volts. But this microgrid system runs at a true 120 volts, 60 hertz, and up to 30 amps. And of course, with all the built-in high-end technology on this, it does run a pure sine wave. It even has the ability to provide 240 volt split phase electricity if you buy 2 of them. Which I know that sounds weird, but it has this E-Link port on the side that actually connects it with another battery and inverter, and it makes sure that the phase are correctly split. That way, when you plug it into something that uses 240 volts, you don't get fire if you're just plugging in 2 different systems. This is actually meant to play well with another Mango Power E device. And on top of the built-in 3.53 kilowatt hour capacity, it has the ability per device to add 1 additional battery cell, giving it a total of 7 kilowatt hours. So if you get 2 of these with 2 additional batteries, that's 14 kilowatt hours. It's pretty big. On to the features. On the front, it has a full color digital touchscreen display. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity. It has easy over-the-air firmware updates, so if you get this connected to Wi-Fi, it will automatically keep itself up to date. And because it is 100 pounds, it does have an expandable luggage handle on the top that makes transporting it, at least through a parking lot, a lot easier than carrying it. It also has a Mango Power app that allows you to control the device from your mobile device. Within that app, it gives you different options to run this power station in different modes. Those modes including things like having backup power or prioritizing solar energy versus grid energy. This all really gives you that feeling of an introduction to off-grid living. And I decided to include this on the feature list, but it does have a 5-year warranty from Mango Power. I think this is pretty much because they're using grade A LFP cells, so they kind of expect it to last a long time. So they can give it a 5-year warranty, and this allows you to be confident in actually using it. And now on to charging. Before, when I mentioned that it handles up to 6 different charging methods, I did the air quotes for a reason, because it primarily only has 2 charging methods. I mean, it's DC and AC. However, it's a little bit more complicated than that. For example, on the AC charging, it has the ability to switch it even from the home screen from a lower amperage charging all the way up to a higher amperage charging. You can select 10 amps, 15 amps, or 30 amps if you'd like. That, of course, is either going to give you 1200, 1800, or 3000 watts respectively. Something to note, if you're going to charge this thing with a 30 amp plug, well, first of all, you actually have to buy the 30 amp plug separate. It only comes with a 15 amp, but if you're going to charge this thing with a 30 amp, you definitely want to make sure that you're plugging it into something that's capable, because it actually pulls about 25 amps. So that's 3, but let's talk about the 4th. EV charging. Now, I don't actually have the cable to do this, so I definitely don't have any experience in testing this out, nor do I even own an EV charger. However, Mango Power says that they will be selling a cable that allows you to adapt an EV plug over into this battery. And the last thing on the AC list is it can handle a generator as an AC input. And then, of course, last but not least, it can handle solar charging up to 2000 watts. But there's a catch. The solar inputs do require 60 to 150 volts. It comes with a standard MC4 cable to the cable that they use to hook this up. They did send me this. This just came with the microgrid power station. But I have 2 Pecron 200 watt 36 volt solar panels. So I was able to run them in series and hook them up to this and actually be able to pull power. Though it wasn't that sunny, but I was able to do my tests, which primarily was testing to see if this thing could charge via solar while discharging with the inverter. The answer is yes, it works perfectly. I wasn't able to pull a lot of watts because, again, it wasn't sunny, but I was able to confirm that it was taking in power while the inverter was running. And I feel like on a microgrid power station sort of level, that's very important. I mean, I could not imagine like having your inverter turned on and not being able to pull in solar power. So I had to confirm that was a thing. So you can charge up to 2000 watts via solar or up to 3000 watts with AC. And they claim that you can even mix and match your different inputs, meaning that you can charge as much as you can off of solar and then use the AC to pick up the rest of the slack. And being able to charge up to 3000 watts means that this thing can charge 100% from zero in 1.5 hours. Now, in my experience running this thing off of a 20 amp plug in the 15 amp mode, that was definitely closer to 2 to 2.5 hours. Now let's talk about the outputs on the front. Of course, first and foremost, and something that I think everybody should take note of, including the other YouTuber who got this battery and made a video based off of the sales pitch and did not actually do any of her own tests and claimed that this was a 240 volt outlet without having a second unit. Wait, was that Jabby? Okay, at the top it has a 120 volt NEMA TT-33 port. This is the port that you can use to hook into, let's say, a van or an RV, run 120 volts, and pull a staggering, actually it's more like 25 amps, but it can handle up to 30 amps. And technically this thing can go over 3000 watts, so it's definitely good that this is rated up to 30 amps. And it is the same port that you would use if you got 2 of these microgrid power stations, tied them together with their M panel that Mango Power is going to sell, and make a 240 volt split phase system. To complement that 30 amp plug, you are greeted with 4 20 amp standard US outlets. And then for DC, you get one USB Type-C 65 watt and then one USB Type-C 100 watt port. These are practically supercharged ports that you can use to run things like laptops that are super power hungry. But you also get 6 USB Type-A quick charge ports that can handle up to 27 watts each. Along the 12 volt, you do get the 2 barrel plugs that can run at 5 amps each, and you get a cigarette lighter port that can run up to 10 amps. Something to note on the 12 volt DC out is that it is regulated to be over 12 volts. I pushed this thing over 9.5 amps on my little tester, and I did not see it dip below 12 volts, so that's good. Power and efficiency. The Mango Power E microgrid power station offers 3,530 watt hours worth of capacity. It can handle up to 3,000 watts in the inverter, but it does have a little headroom for those things that really take the power. But this thing can handle 3,150 watts for almost 5 minutes, 3,750 watts for almost a minute, 4,500 watts for about 10 seconds, and claims to be able to do 4,800 watts for roughly about 40 milliseconds. That's what we call surge power. Now, when it comes to the inverter efficiency, Mango Power claims that it can get up to 88% efficiency. However, I got close to that, but I didn't actually reach 88%. Now, I have inverter efficiency numbers, but I want you to bear in mind that this was sent to me in kind of a haste to say, hey, here's this unit, we have kind of a short time frame. So although I was able to complete my test, I did not have time to rerun some tests, which includes a higher wattage output that kind of netted me a lower percentage than I thought it would. Usually when I get percentages or test results that are just way off than what I thought they would be, I do a retest just to verify my findings. I was, however, still able to perform 4 separate tests to get a pretty good idea of what the power efficiency curve looks like. On this screen, starting from the left, I started out at 520 watt draw, which gave me 3,040 watt hours for a total efficiency of 86.11%. Next up was 860 watts for 3,080 watt hours for an 87.25%. And then I stepped it up to 1,360 watts, and it actually brought my power output to 3,060 watt hours. This gave me an efficiency rating of 86.68%. And then the big kicker was running this thing at 1,800 watts, which is technically like 60% of what this thing can handle. This gave me a total of 2,780 watt hours for an efficiency of 78.75. The optimal on this is 88%, but the highest that I was able to reach was 87.25. So 79% is definitely a big drop if you plan on using that kind of power consistently enough to drain the battery. Even though I didn't run any test with higher output, this graph does allow me to kind of see that if I were to draw more power, it would probably either be the same or it would be a lower efficiency curve. Furthermore, when I actually ran this at the lower wattage, that 560 watts, I saw that efficiency drop, which kind of tells me that the sweet spot is going to be somewhere between 900 to possibly 1,100 watt draw. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about the display. Now, this is a 4.3 inch full color digital touchscreen display. It shows you key information like the wattage of your solar or your grid input, the AC and the DC output, and of course it shows you the estimated time remaining based off your current discharge. The icons on the left are only indicator lights. It does not matter how many times you press it or think something's wrong and maybe try to press it again. I'm not saying I did that too long, but they are only indicator lights and they are not buttons that you can click to make setting changes. Just throwing that out there. Which actually brings me up to why I may or may not have tried to press those buttons for so long. And that is because from the display, the changing of settings, the seeing different options, like really for that being a full touchscreen, color, whatever screen, really kind of has limited options that you can do directly from the screen. Mango Power kind of leans a lot on their app for more advanced settings and kind of leaves this, what I consider a pretty decent high-end touchscreen with very few options. One of those options I think is kind of a big deal, and that is charging time. You can plug anything you want into this, and the Mango Power E will not tell you an estimated time to complete its recharge. I personally find that really weird. However, I do hold a little bit of confidence because I know it is a full color touchscreen, and all it is just probably one firmware update away from including that on the main screen. And by that thought process, it's 2 updates away from having more options on the main screen. Just throwing that out there. So let's talk about that mobile app, shall we? The mobile app that I had no access to. Problem number 1, and probably something that I hope that it's high on their firmware update fixability phase, is going to be locked behind an account that you have to register and log into in order to, from what I can see, manipulate anything aside from the Wi-Fi connection. No joke, all you can do with this from a Bluetooth capable device is use the Mango Power app, connect to it, set up the BLE, the Bluetooth low energy connector thing. You can set up the Wi-Fi connection through that to tell this how to connect to the internet, but that's it. You can't change anything else. You can't see anything else. You can't do anything else. It's just, no, connect the battery, log in. Now, because I had early access to the power station, Mango Power had not completed the mobile app access. So that meant I kind of had to go into this whole entire thing without having access to any of the advanced features that they have to offer through the app. Because when I tried to register the device, it said registration failed, and when I reached out and asked why, they said because they're updating it and they plan on releasing it by the time it's out. I made a strong argument for having some sort of local option that does not require an internet connection or an account or a registration just to make settings for a device that you spend $4,000 on. I'm sorry, but I will not change my mind on this. If I spend $4,000 on a battery, which again, they sent it to me, thank you very much, Mango Power. But if I were to spend $4,000 on a battery and realize that I can't even configure it without logging in, creating, or registering my device, I would probably be a little irked. Just saying. With all of that said, based off of their website, the screenshots I saw on their website, apparently the mobile app can be very useful. It can give you energy reports to show your production or your consumption of energy, which I think is a big deal, especially if you're getting this whole intro to off-grid living lifestyle thing going on over here, and you want to see how much your solar panels are producing every single day, or better yet, how much you're actually consuming. Maybe find ways to optimize your power consumption to live better on a battery. So of course you can see what you're putting out and taking in, but there's also different modes that you can switch between using the mobile app that you can't do from the front screen there. Now these different power modes include a backup mode, which essentially turns on the inverter but bypasses your AC power, and then it has a little UPS backup relay switch, which takes about 20 milliseconds, give or take some change. It has a UPS relay switch that will kick on the inverter, activate it as soon as it detects power loss, aptly named backup mode. The second mode option that you have is a time-based mode. In this mode, you're supposed to be able to configure the power station to prioritize battery in those really expensive times during the day that you just probably don't want to draw from the grid because it costs so much money. Looking at you, California. And then it has an economical mode that prioritizes green energy, like your solar panel inputs. I don't know much more than that because that's just directly off the website and I didn't have access to this app to look into it more. Which this is just going to roll into the cons chapter. Like I said, the app itself, at least so far in my experience, does not work. They plan on updating it. It'll probably be updated by the time you get it. But one of the key downsides to this app so far is that it's locked behind a registration and an internet connection. So I really hope that that does not make it till full production. As far as the battery backup mode goes, it definitely feels like 20 milliseconds. I do not have any equipment to test this on. So I would have to venture to guess that the internal relay is larger than what I've looked at before. But I just want to say that if you're going to use this for, let's say, a battery backup for a server or a computer or something like that, you may run into issues if it actually kicks on. I don't know if you will because every computer or server's mileage may vary, but it is just something to take into consideration. Last but not least, let's see. It's the most annoying beep in the world whenever you turn on the DC. I have no idea why it does that. You turn on the AC inverter, it's not nearly as proud. You turn on the DC inverter, it has to announce it to the world. All right, let's do a palate cleanser and let's move on to the pros, the things that I really like about this power station. Having the grade A CATL cell, that is a mouthful right there. Having grade A cattle cells gives you more reliability and they're actually made a little bit safer because they're higher quality. I mean, these things are like the bougie babes of the battery world, you know what I mean? The inverter having 120 volts over the normal 110 volts is actually pretty cool. It doesn't matter for things like computers, but if you're running something like a space heater or a fan, you will legitimately notice the difference if you switch instantly from 120 to 110. If you plug that same fan into something that's putting out 110, you're just gonna think, this just doesn't run right. Another pro with this thing is that yes, you can technically buy a second unit. You can use the E-port to connect them, which is cool because that gives you the whole 240 volt split phase thing. But then you can also buy an additional battery for each one of those units, giving you a total of 14. That's right, 14 kilowatt hour capacity. That's pretty huge for a technically portable microgrid power station. Once more, that's pretty huge considering that if you wanted to get into this, you could initially invest in one, then you could invest in, let's say, a second one, and then you can invest later on down the line with a couple battery packs. So it really allows you to expand your system as your budget allows it and as you are basically getting comfortable with using this device. And last but not least, EV charging. Now, I know I kind of touched base on that just a little bit, but that's actually really impressive, especially if you are on the go. Let's say you're in an RV, you roll up near an EV station and you really need to charge your battery. Maybe your solar panels aren't keeping up. Maybe it's in the middle of the night, who knows? But you need to charge this thing and you need to charge it quick. If you roll up to one of those EV charging sites and you swipe your credit card or however that wizardry goes on, If you have the adapter, you can actually plug this in and charge it. In about an hour, you'll get 80%, and an hour and a half, you can get 100%. That's a pretty legit option. Most people stop for lunch. It takes them at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So what's another 15 minutes? But of course, all of that is going to come at a cost. And yes, this costs a little bit of money. To start off, the initial device, the main unit, is going to run you about $3,999. If you're starting off with $4,000 and then you want to add another one, you're at $8,000 investment right now to basically gain 7 kilowatt hours and a 240 volt split phase system. I mean, that's $8,000. It's nothing to joke around about. On top of that, and I don't know the prices of the battery packs, but on top of that, you can eventually buy those additional battery packs for however much money they're going to cost. I can't imagine the additional battery packs being anything less than maybe $200 to $2,500. So yes, it is big and it is powerful, but it definitely costs a little bit of money. So in conclusion, the Mango Power E has the true microgrid spirit in both its size and its power capability. It is extremely easy to integrate into your van life or your RV life because it just has a plug. Nice 30 amp right at the top. But with size and power comes weight. Weighing in at 100 pounds, this thing isn't going to be one of those easy on the go batteries, at least not without some effort. I'm not saying you can't lift up 100 pounds. I'm just saying that if you have to lift up 100 pounds repeatedly and tote it around everywhere you go, you're probably not going to consider this thing truly mobile. This is going to be mobile in the sense of I wheeled it out to my RV or my van and I strapped it to the floor, and then I mobily drove it across the street. Yes, it can do 240 volt split phase. In fact, if you get two of these with the 240 volt, you can run up to 6,000 watts because you have two inverters. And of course, with all of the upgrades, you can have up to 14 kilowatt hours worth of battery capacity, which is all very impressive. And I linger on the fact that it all costs money. However, I can't ignore that it at least has the option to expand. You don't have to expand. You can get by just fine with one of these massive power stations by itself. In the future, maybe when you have more money, knowing that you probably want more power, but you can't add on to the existing system you already have, that doesn't have this. This is expandable. It will cost you, but at least you can expand it. I mean, it is nice being able to grow with your budget. The CATL LFP Grade A cells is definitely impressive compared to what other battery power stations use. However, I think one of the biggest things getting into a system like this will be the app. And that's really one of the reasons why I'm disappointed I wasn't initially able to gain access to it. With the app, it gives you that true microgrid, off-grid feeling by going through and running reports and seeing what your power consumption and production is. I feel like that's a big deal. The Tesla Powerwall has a full-on system that allows you to see all of this. It allows you to kind of visualize what your production and your consumption is. That should hopefully allow you to plan around it and use it better. This, having that built into it, assuming it works at launch, would be a huge benefit. Well, that's all I have to say about the new Mango Power E microgrid power station. I do want to give a huge shout out to Mango Power for sending this unit over for me to review. As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, make sure to leave that in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and have yourself a great day.